What stopped you from committing suicide? Deep down, had a feeling it was gonna get better, even though I didn't believe it at the time. Boy, I was right. Parents didn't allow, sorry guys. My dog. Back in high school I had a lot of stuff going on that I will not go into for the sake of keeping this short. But it was a very rough time for me. My grandma had gifted me a 3-week-old Australian Shepherd for Christmas. And that was about the time of rock bottom. I was taking a lot of pills and exponentially taking more and more. One night I had a bottle of prescription oxycodone that I stole from a friend's house and had more than enough to do the job. I took all of them, and sat on the floor of my bedroom waiting and listening to music, and my puppy was laying on the bed behind me. I sorta slumped, sat up and started petting her and watching her sleep, and very quickly realized how much she meant to me and worried about what would happen to her if I left. I got cold feet and slump walked/crawled my way to the bathroom and forced myself to vomit as much as I possibly could. I downed 3 bottles of water and hoped it would all have been enough, went back and laid in bed with my dog and fell asleep petting her. I woke up the next day with the biggest pill hangover ever, but I somehow pulled through. All thanks to my little baby Ozzy. And still count my blessings every day, and every time I look at her. A couple things combined the right way. 1. The book 13 Reasons Why both encouraged me and helped stop me. I was a teenager, already having some suicidal thoughts but not really planning it. I read that book and the glorification of suicide as revenge was inspiring. I was ready to go, but I wanted to do it like she did in the book. Since the way she did it was so ridiculously overthought, it ended up taking me so long to try to prepare that the second thing stopped me first. 2. This feels so embarrassing to me now, but a Vine. This was 2013 to 2014, and while in the middle of a depressive spiral I scrolled across a Vine from one of my most watched creators, basically just saying some generic positivity message. Hey, shit will get better, you do have value, the world needs you. That kind of thing. It was exactly what I needed to hear at the time, coming from someone I was enthralled by. I'm still here 8/9 years later. Still wonder why I'm around sometimes, but never deeply enough to actually do anything. Shows, books, and completing my collection of media and merch. I was 17, it was before that I passed some serious exams in school. I was thinking how I could kill myself, and then I received a message from my best friend, something like I need to talk. Then he called me on Discord and explained to me that a girl in our class killed herself. I was in love with that girl, and she loved my best friend. At this moment, I understood how painful it is for people to know that someone they loved killed themselves. Sorry, I know that my English suck. I hope it's still understandable. It was a video game called Persona 4. There was a time in my life where things felt like crap. This was during my early teens, around 13 years old. I wasn't the most popular kid. I was also socially awkward. My father was very strict and angry, took it out on me. Left me emotionally damaged. That lasts to this day. My mother was very strict when it comes to religion. And my sister, she received more support from my parents than me. To top it all off, what broke me and led me to my depression was that I got rejected from a girl I liked. I got laughed at and totally shut myself off from everyone. The few friends I did have, I pushed them away because the feeling of hurt was so bad. There were 2 instances where I decided to end it all. One, where I decided to use my dad's weapon to end it. I didn't push through with it because in the back of my head, I didn't want the last thing I felt was pain because of the bullet. The other was when I was thinking of trying to create cyanide through seeds. I didn't push through with this because I didn't have money. I decided, why not, since I'm not going to enjoy my life, I might as well play something to just pass the time once my schoolwork was done. So, I played Persona 4 through a PlayStation emulator. I had a low-end laptop for schoolwork but no consoles because my family couldn't even afford that as well. What started as a way to pass the time, slowly helped me learn to socialize. How there are these characters and maybe people who weren't as different than I am. How I can maybe fall in love one day. and the painful reality of saying goodbye, but I can always keep in touch with the people I became close with and see them again one day. While it didn't completely erase my depression, it certainly stopped me from ending my life 13 years ago. I still thank the game that saved my life. I was feeling extremely suicidal and was crying while watching some good news. I promised myself I would live 1 week, so I could see the next one. I thought that would keep me going for the next 7 days. Then, at the end of the episode, John announced it was the last episode. The irony that it was the last episode had me cracking up, thinking, that's just my luck. I laughed so hard that it made the idea silly. I've never told anyone this before, but I was actively looking up methods online on how to most effectively commit suicide. There was a website there listing all the ways to go about it, but there was also the information about what can go wrong and a list of support services. I found it ironic that most of the time you actually live, although with horrific injuries and regret. I think the frankness of it all shocked me enough to reconsider. I'm very thankful for that website. So this is my story. I have a wife, 2 children and 2 cats. We regard them as members of our family. I'm currently sitting here after a night out with friends and I genuinely don't see a reason to live. Wow, I've never said that before. But I feel so lonely and miserable. I don't think anyone would suspect it or see it coming, but I genuinely walked home tonight thinking I could just jump off a bridge and no one would really miss me. Yes, they may be a bit shocked, but after a few weeks I'd be soon forgotten. Don't worry, it's not going to happen tonight or probably the next, but it just goes to show that no matter how shit I feel, I still can't get the courage to put myself at peace. Life is shit. Honestly, my cat. My family too, it's tough when they live in a different country. Around the New Year's night I was at a classmate's party. I was surrounded by people but felt weirdly lonely and decided fuck it, then went upstairs, stubbed my foot on an intersection of the terrace, started crying and slept there. A bunch of strangers later took me down thinking I was high. 1. Being selfish to end my pain but then give that pain to my family and friends. 2. Fear of what's next. This thread. A call from the love of my life. I realized that the only way I could get better is if I removed myself from the toxic environment that caused my suicidal spiral in the first place. Narcissistic mother. I decided to finally let go of everything that was holding me back from him, and moved far, far away from her. Double right pointing triangles. 2 years later, he and I are healthier than ever, and engaged. Smiling face with hearts, ring. Truthfully, it didn't work the 2 times I attempted. I think about it in certain situations and am almost always very tempted to take action, but I just don't. This line from the K-drama Hi Bye Mama. There's a word for people who lose their parents but none for people who lose their children. I just couldn't do it to my mom or dad. Your child dying before you. I think it's one of the most dreading feelings ever. Being able to have an abortion. I'm coming up short on reasons. I'd if my answer matters since I only stopped temporarily, smiley face, but my body can't even handle the slightest pain and suffocation sounds terrifying. My only reason for stopping is not having an easy painless way out, embarrassed smiley face. On my ex's birthday, August 21st, I took more than 12 Xanax and drank 6 beers and was doing 110 miles per hour down the highway hoping I would fall asleep behind the wheel and crash. But here I am. TW. I was 16 sitting on the bathroom floor with everything laid out in my lap including a pen and notepad. At that point I was almost done writing the note when it dawned on me that I couldn't write down everything I needed to say. Because I knew those I loved would have infinite amounts of questions that required answers if I didn't want them to live the rest of their lives with a pit in their hearts. And if I went through with it, I could no longer give them the answers. That's what made me realize that I needed to get help. The thoughts never fully went away, but they have certainly gotten quieter. Despite everything, I'm really glad I stayed. Smile. Sorry for the punctuation and grammatical errors, it's a hard subject. a pre-booked therapist appointment, my brother-in-law and some words from my mum. I was done, had completely decided in my mind, had stopped crying and gone totally numb. A part of me knew that it might get better, but it didn't matter anymore, it just mattered that it didn't hurt anymore. I honestly don't know what inside me did it, and I don't remember going, but something put me in the car that day and drove me to my usual 2 p.m. app. I walked in and my therapist could just tell. Within an hour herself and her colleague had pushed back their next appointments and organized for me to go to hospital with a member of their team later that day. They weirdly made me eat grapes and both just sat with me until it was time to go. They called my brother-in-law to update him that I was on my way to the hospital and why. He called and I just remember him saying one thing: tell them the truth. So I did. I waited it out and went through the chain of command and told them the plan at the hospital. To be released, my brother-in-law had to come get me and remove all the pills from my house. I didn't realize, but they called my mum that night too and told her my plan. The next day she called and said, I know you can't hold hope for your life right now. That's okay though, because I'm going to hold all the hope for your life that you need, for you. And I let her. And I hung on long enough to be admitted as a long-term inpatient a few weeks later and decided to allow medication into my life for her. 3 months later I just moved to my dream beach and house. Walking on the beach last week I heard a voice that said, this is what you held on for, and I bawled my fucking eyes out. It was the first moment in years I've felt beauty in being alive. Still recovering, but so very glad I'm alive to recover. This will probably get lost in the ethers as this question is a few days old. But if you are reading this and have no hope, that's okay, because I will hold all the hope you need, for you. Just stay.